did an application 1 and application 2 where we calculate our earnings and then we calculate our deductions, but we have to put them on an accounting form that gets used over and over again. So we have 2 accounting forms in our work together. The very first top one is our payroll register, and I want to explain what a payroll register it is. Every time you have to pay employees, you go through and you fill out a payroll register. It shows what everything is, the cost of having employees for this pay period. Now, different businesses pay different times. So when you think about the jobs that you've had, some businesses pay weekly. Some businesses pay every 2 weeks. Some get paid monthly, some get paid bi-monthly. And bi-monthly is different than every 2 weeks. So for example, I always get paid on the 15th and the last day of the month. So it doesn't really matter what day of the week it is, the 15th and the last day of the month. So if the last day of the month is the 31st, I get paid on the 31st. If it's February, I get paid on the 28th. Does that make sense? But if you get paid every 2 weeks, it might be every 2 weeks on a Thursday or on a Friday. So every business will determine what is going to meet for them. So now, the other thing I want you to think about is it takes time to go through and calculate payroll. Typically, what has to happen is you have to work one whole pay period and then wait, and then your next pay period is going to be the first paycheck you receive. So if I start today at Don's, today's my first day, and they get paid every 2 weeks on a Friday, so today's a Friday, next week is when time cards need to be turned in. It would be 2 weeks from there would be when I receive my first paycheck, because I have to work first, then they have 2 weeks to go through and calculate how much I've earned and what my deductions are, and then I get the paycheck. So it usually always seems like a long time when you first start working when you get paid. But then you also have to realize if you leave the job, you are still going to get one more paycheck for whenever time that you have left over. There are 3 sections of a payroll register. The first section is, look right here, is we have earnings. Do you see how there's this solid line that goes right here, and we have a heading earnings, then we have a heading deductions, and then right here we have net pay. I need you to go through and complete your payroll register in those sections. First, you have to calculate your earnings. Once you have your earnings, you can then calculate deductions, because you can't do anything with deductions until you get to that point. Your net pay is your earnings minus your deductions give you your pay. So we always want to think according to that. Now, the other thing that we have on the very bottom of this assignment is your employee earnings record. Yesterday, I talked to you about that tax base. Meaning, once you make a certain amount of money, you don't have to pay taxes for Social Security and Medicare. Yesterday, I said for our accounting class purposes that tax base is going to be $87,000. So when I do payroll, if each one of you worked in my business, I would have to look at each payroll and say, did you make $87,000? Did you? You made $87,000, you don't have to have Social Security. Still takes taxes. The only way I would know that is I have to have records on each employee. So I fill out the payroll register because that's my total cost of having employees. And then I transfer that information from my payroll register to my employee's earnings record. And what is the biggest mistake from this chapter is this column right here. This is the number one mistake. If we look over, this looks exactly the same as the payroll register. And once you have information on the payroll register, all you really do is just copy it down into an employee's earnings record. Except we have to calculate accumulated earnings. But this is what students take a look at. They say, oh, accumulated, and it's really close to this number, and they add net pay in it. But really what word this says is earnings. So you actually have to make sure you take your total earnings number, because your tax base is based on how much money you have earned already throughout the year, not how much money you have received in your paycheck. Does that sound good? That's what we're looking at. Our directions for Work Together 12-3 read, selected payroll data for Antique Shop are provided in the payroll register. Your instructor will guide you through the following example. Complete the payroll register for Judy Hensley and Mike McCune for the semi-monthly pay period ended July 15th. So, On the very top, we have to put in our dates. July 15th of the current year, and our date of payment is going to be July 15th as well. So make sure you get those two numbers filled in the top. Now, how am I going to calculate total earnings? This is not a hard math question. What am I going to do? Add them up. Now, this is where I say, please be careful. Because if you put the wrong number here, everything over here is wrong. So it's a snowball effect. One small mistake can cost you all the points on the assignment. So make sure it is right. So I'm going to do the same thing for Mike. Add 920 plus 5175. Gives you 971.75. Now, the next column we have is federal income tax. What do we do with that? Give you a hint. I taught you it yesterday. Nope. Look in the book. We have to look in your textbook. I know. That crazy thing that you're supposed to use and read. So we're using page 370, 347, and 348. Now, when I look here for Judy, Judy is married. So what page will I be on for Judy? 348. Thank you. Who said that? Thank you, Kayla. So Judy's total earnings is $1,079. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to find, I'm going to go between 1,060 and 1,080. And Judy has 2 withholding allowances. So Ben, what is her federal income tax? 48. Anyone else agree? No one else is listening? You're listening? No one cares today? Oh my. Let's take a look. I'm going to do Mike's right away because I have the book out. So when we take a look at Mike, Mike is single, so we have to be on page 347. His earnings is $971. $95. Who gave me that one? Nice. I agree, $95. So federal income tax, we always use a tax table. It'll always be given to you. You never have to memorize it. What do we do with Social Security? Dylan? How do we calculate it? Yes, so we have to take your total earnings of $1,079 and multiply it by that percentage of 0.062. Now, what is the cents going to be for Judy's Social Security? It is going to be 90. When you calculate it, it'll be 66.898, and you want to go ahead and round that to 66.90. Social Security is going to be the same thing, but you're going to use the 0.0145. You guys arguing up top? So basically, this is what we did in 1 and 2, except we're putting it on a legitimate accounting form for payroll. Now, to do my other columns, I need to read the rest of the directions. Bless you. So it reads right here. Neither employee has reached the tax base. For each employee, withhold $60 for health insurance and $15 for U.S. savings bonds per pay period. So that means for health insurance, I'm going to put in 60. Other, I'm going to put in 15 for each one. And they will always give you that to you in the directions. Now I need to calculate my total deductions. So I'm going to add up federal income tax, Social Security, Medicare, health insurance, and other. I calculate net pay by taking total earnings, subtract away your total deductions, and that will give you your net pay. So that is how you do calculating your earnings for your individuals. Now, we have to go through and do the totals. There's a couple tricks that I like to teach you on totals. On line 3 of my payroll register, I will go through and put in the word totals, and then I will add to the bottom for my columns. Now, I'm getting to total earnings and I'm stopping. I want you to look up here so we make sure we see this. I know you're in the middle of adding, so finish whatever you're adding and then turn around so I can show you what I'm doing here. When you are done with your employees, you have to go through in total and prove your payroll register. We're not proving debits and credits, but I'm proving sections. So remember how I described the payroll register and I said there's 3 sections? There's earnings, there's deductions, and their net pay. You have to prove each one as you go along. So I finished it all individually. Now I went through and did totals. I have all of my totals here for my earnings. So what I need to do is I need to prove that my earnings totals are correct. How I do that is I take my total for regular plus my total for overtime, and it should equal what? My total? Does that make sense? I will do exactly the same thing for deductions. I will add up federal, Social Security, Medicare, health insurance, other, and total. Then I would add up each one of these totals to make sure it equals this. If you don't do this, this is going to be where you make a mistake and you're going to lose a lot of points. You have to be very diligent with payroll because pennies matter. And you're going to have a lot of sense when we go through and calculate payroll. So I would go through right now on my calculator and do 1,000. See? Perfect. 1,960. Plus 9050, and then on my calculator I get 2050.5. Does that equal what I have for my total earnings? So right there I have to stop and figure out where my mistake is. So where is my mistake? Overtime. My cents is wrong, right? So I should have 75 cents there. So I will continue to do that all the way across. Your biggest mistakes are going to be from not proving your payroll register and your accumulated earnings not being calculated correctly. Those are my big things that I see in this chapter. Besides the fact that it just takes a lot of time to add. You will find your assignments for this chapter. You will have a payroll register, but instead of having 2 employees, you might have 8. So it's the same procedure for every employee. You just have to take the time to make sure you calculate it correctly. Once you have your payroll register done and it's proved, you have to go through and prepare a quarterly earnings record. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to that right now. So on the very top it says earning records for quarter ending. And in our directions, it does tell us that the quarter ending is going to be September 30th of the current year. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in on the very top line. And we're going to fill it in for Ms. Hensley. Ms. Hensley, employee number is 5. She is married and has a withholding allowance of 2. Her rate of pay is 13. Social Security number is given to you, and her position is a sales clerk. The other piece of information you have to fill in is going to be her accumulated earnings, which is $13,520. So all of that information I got directly from the directions. The only thing that they didn't give you that I guessed at right now, but I'm going to confirm, is going to be her middle initial. So I'll just confirm that we have the right middle initial for Judy. You didn't put it in? Her first name is, oh yes, I did it backwards. Thank you. Oh yes, middle initial should be blank. They didn't give us one because it is blank. Thank you. Now, here is the easy part. We copy Judy's information from up here on line 1 down below. So we're going to put the date on there is going to be July, or excuse me, you're going to do 7/15. And I'm really going to copy my numbers from up above. Judy's regular earnings was $1,040, overtime of $39, $1,079 for total earnings, $48 for federal, $66.90, $15.65, $60, $15.205, $55, $873.45. That was really fast. Would you agree? Too fast? All you're doing is copying the numbers from up above. You don't have to look at mine. It really is your numbers up on the top from Judy. That's why I went so fast, because I take these numbers and put them here. This is giving me a running record. It shows me all the information just for Judy. If we didn't do this, there would be no way we would know if employees have reached their tax base. Also, at the end of the year, the employer has to give you a W-2 that shows you all of your earnings and what your deductions have been for the year, and all of that is going to be coming from your employee earnings record. The last thing that we have to do in our employee earnings record is we have to take our accumulated earnings, which is listed in here as $13,520, and I need to add my total earnings of $1,079. Because that is going to tell me if somebody has exceeded that tax base. Now, I want to show you the double-edged sword that happens here. I miscalculate earnings here, my total earnings. All my deductions are wrong here. And then when they're wrong here, they're wrong here. So you can get the whole assignment wrong because of one math mistake. Slow down. It's not a race. Double check that you have everything done correctly. Okay? So that is filling in a payroll register and an employee's earnings record. So when I look at 12-4, look, they amazingly have this completed payroll register that we just did in the last assignment. Isn't that amazing? What we have to do now is we actually have to pay people. We went through and calculated it, but you're not going to be happy if your employer said, oh yeah, you earned $275, but I'm not actually going to give you your money. So what we need to realize for doing our paying our employees is we are going to write one large check from our general checking account. So just like the same checking account that we go through and write checks for our supplies or payment on the account. And the amount that I'm going to write the check for is going to be the total of my net pay, $1,686. You see where I'm getting that number right here? So one check from my general account is going to be written to cover all my payroll. I take that check and I deposit that into my separate checking account that I write employees' paychecks to. It just adds a layer of security for your account so that way you don't have money withdrawn from there. And then you also know whether or not employees have cashed all of their paychecks and you don't have to wait for any outstanding checks. So I write from the general account, I deposit it into a payroll checking account, and then I write out special checks to each employee. And you will notice that the checks that employees receive are much different. So let's write out that general check first, and then we'll look at our employee checks. So here's my general account. On the very top, I'm going to put the amount of the check, which is $1,686. The date is going to be July 15th. We're going to do 7/15, and it's going to be made payable to the payroll account. And it is for payroll for July 1st through the 15th. We always fill out the check stub first. The balance brought forward is $16,542. They gave us that in the directions. No information on a deposit, so I'm just going to put $16,542 here. The amount of this check is $1,686. I then need to calculate how much I'm going to have in my general checking account by taking $16,542 and subtract $1,686. Gives me a new balance of $14,941.14. Once I have my check stub filled out, then I go and write out my check. So always do your stub first. Date is July 15th, paid to the order of payroll account, and then they give us the account number, which is 0639583. Give us two directions. And in Applia, it just goes through and automatically gives you a drop-down list to choose those items because it doesn't necessarily like that we can type in all kinds of random words. So again, first step, write one account to cover all of your payroll and you get that number from the total net pay. Now I need to write paychecks to my employees. Look at the stub information on these checks. They are completely different. Anytime you get paid from an employer, they have to go through and tell you your information, what your earnings were, how much money was taken out. They can't just give you a paycheck without giving you that information. So that's what we're going to be putting on the side here. So we're going to go ahead and fill in Judy's check on the top, and that's going to be the date of the 7/15. Judy's earnings was $1,079. Regular earnings is $1,040. Overtime is $39. So it's kind of adding up. Judy's total deductions is $205.55. 48 for federal, 66.90 for Social Security, Medicare is 15.65, health insurance is 60, other is U.S. savings bonds. Where am I getting that information from? Right here. This line. Everything's all calculated for you. We did it once, and we're just using that information again. So just look at your directions and get the numbers from your payroll register. The very, very last thing that you have to do after you filled out your checks, directly on the far right of your payroll register, you have to put the check number. So Judy, we filled out and gave her check 186. So I put that in there. And Mike, we filled out and gave check 187. So on your payroll register, you have to put the check number associated with when they got paid. So if there's ever any questions, you can always look it up. Oh, it's not supposed to be graded, but I'll change that in a second. $5.99. I put on the two-part payroll account. I forgot to put the account number on the second line. You should put on the second line the account number of 0639583. Instead of just being payable to payroll account, you need the account number associated with it. So that way it can only be put into that one specific checking account and it can't go into another one. So far what we've learned in this chapter is how to calculate earnings, how to calculate deductions, record an entire payroll for a business on a payroll register, transfer that information to an employee's earnings record so you know whether or not they've exceeded that tax base of $87,000. I'm saying that a lot because I'm going to guarantee that's a test question. And then we write out checks for our payroll. That is Chapter 12. Not too bad, huh? I did already turn on your study guide, which will be due, is it Wednesday of the week? Bless you. Tuesday? So your study guide is Tuesday. I am still planning on a test next week on Thursday. What I will be doing is I will turn on some assignments that will be due. You will have work time on Monday and Tuesday because I will not be here. I will be at State FBLA to go through and work. If you have not read the chapter, read it. There are going to be a lot of multiple choice true-false questions that will kick your butt on the test because you haven't read the content. Read the chapter. You also have your outline that I shared with you in classroom. That one actually got shared with you on Tuesday during our snow day, so make sure you take a look at that as well. Sound good?